We go.
Okay.
Well, here we are again, Danny. Welcome back to the Christ Quest. We're going to be doing a different kind of conversation today than when we chatted, or I kind of interviewed you. We chatted. So
Right.
first of all, yeah, then people reach out to me and tell me how much they appreciated your interview or our conversation.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoyed doing it. I'm really happy to see somebody that kind of gets it. Like, when I saw your video that you did, it looked like you just woke up and you were laying in bed and shirtless, and you were just, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And what you shared of just this something in you that wants to come out and you don't know what it is. I mean, you were like speaking for me. I mean, that's the way I am. And it's like about 15 years ago, kind of the same thing happened to me. I had an awakening and, I saw some things and I've been trying to figure it out. And, it's kind of coming along, but your vision and, man, I mean, I see that. I see that humanity is ready for. We've been in dogmatic religions for too long, and there are good people in them, but the systems themselves, they're kind of being exposed and crumbling now, and I think that's going to open up the door for a lot of people just to question, hey, I believe this, but is it really true? And maybe really find that what they're really looking for is really inside of them, like the Christ awakening within them. And I think that's what's going to be the second coming of Christ is, when we all begin to feel that, hey, wait a minute, Jesus came to tell us that, I can be like he is, that I have the same spirit in me that is in him. And so yeah, your vision just really resonated with me a lot.
Well, yeah, good. What is it? Where does it make you go?
Well, I don't know where I am, and like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, I had a vision board, and man, and I had my whole life planned out exactly. Like, okay, this, exactly. I knew everything, and I went through a dark night of the soul, which nothing on my vision. I mean, everything was going wrong. And one night I went out and I built the bonfire and I just took my ever-present vision board and I just took it and I laid it on the bonfire and just said, okay, I surrender. I don't know where I'm going. But I trust you. I know that you're real. Source, God, whatever name you want to put on it, universe, quantum field, Holy Spirit, I know it's there. I've never doubted that. And I've had so many experiences over the past, 15 years really, since my dark night of the soul that I went through, that is just, there's no other explanation. I mean, even things that are humanly impossible to have all happened together. But I'm kind of learning, and a lot of other people, and this is what the Buddha and Eastern religions, a lot of them have taught that, you don't have to know, you just have to surrender to source. And, I had a teacher, he was kind of a Taoist master, and he always talked about, non-doing to where it's not we that's, we plan and okay, I'm going to do this. And it's more like just a surrender to source and to the flow of source through us. And, we don't have to know all the answers. We don't have to know. Jesus said, don't even worry about tomorrow. He said, tomorrow's going to take care of itself. He said, just, focus on today, because today, and when tomorrow comes as today, well, then we'll take care of it there. But it does no good to worry about tomorrow. And this is why I think it's sad, all the Christians that, they look at the book of Revelation and they try to figure out, okay, the Antichrist is going to come here and the rapture is going to be here. And, I mean, if the Antichrist comes tomorrow, he's going to come tomorrow, but worrying about it today only ruins our present moment. So, yeah, but it's just more surrender to not knowing and, finding the present moment. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I love the Tao Te Ching, the first verse, and it's just a teeny little book, kind of the Bible of Taoism. And it explains what the Tao is, Tao, T-A-O or D-A-O, it's spelled both ways. And, so the Tao is everything seen, unseen, creator, created, everything. And the first line in there says, the Tao that can be spoken or put into words, that ain't it. And the name that can be named, the name of God that you can speak, that ain't it, And that's kind of, the way, we don't have to know. We don't have to know how everything's going to turn out. We don't have to set goals. We try to get our self-worth or our happiness from outer circumstances and accomplishments and this and that, and look what I did, and look what I accomplished, and look what I owned, and look what I have. And these give us a feeling inside of us, but we kind of have to find we're doing it backwards. We try to find the feeling inside of us first, what Jesus referred to as the kingdom of heaven within. And he said, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all these other things will be added to you. And we'll just, kind of go through life more as an effortless flow, not judging things as good or bad, or this should have happened or this shouldn't have happened, but just, oh, look what happened today, okay. And then we deal with whatever it is. So.
I been getting hit with just yesterday. I've been listening to a lot of Alan Watts, who's passed now,
Oh, yeah.
philosopher. Really, really like his stuff. He was
Oh,
raised
I do
very
too.
religiously, but brilliant man. And yesterday I watch his videos when I work out, and just talking about how if we're ever stressed or we're struggling, we're not like water. We need to be like water and just flow. It's like, and now ask yourself, where is the energy going? Where is things flowing? Go with that. Don't. He's like, if you try to swim against the current upstream, you will die trying. But if you just go with it and then cut, you can get over to the shore pretty quick if you go with it. And I was just listening to that, going, wow, I've been trying to force some key things in my life for a while instead of going with where is the energy flowing?
Yeah, that's what, when we want something so badly and we got to make it happen, that's where we get into trouble, because we're actually push it away, and we got to have it, and okay, I got this planned out and it's got to work, and we're swimming upstream, and sometimes it's like you got to let that dream go, or you got to let something go and just say, well, I'm not going to hang on to it, I'm not going to fight, just let it go and surrender. And I found out you do that and something better will show up. It's like, oh,
Well, what did you want to talk today about? Like, you have a vision, you have or something you want to talk about, right? About that.
well, when you talked about your vision, and it just so resonated with me, and my vision is, basically, I shared with you how I was very fundamentalist Christian. I mean, I was a fundamentalist of the fundamentalists for most of my life, and left that belief system about 20 years ago. For the first time in my life, started learning a little bit about Eastern religions and indigenous wisdom and things, and I, about 5 or 6 years ago, started realizing that, wait a minute, Jesus, he, is a lot different. There's a different way of looking at him than, I was told, taught growing up, and I accepted and believed and defended. And a lot of it was through the writings of, like Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi and stuff. And I read that book and I thought, wow, here this Indian guru, this Hindu, has a deeper love for Jesus and more fruit in his life and a deeper understanding than I ever heard in Christianity. And so, I look at the West. Jesus, the person, is so deeply entrenched in the whole collective consciousness, but the the picture that we have of it, the way Christianity has presented it, is that, you know, Jesus came to save us because we need to be saved. Adam and Eve sinned, and so because of that, we were born guilty. You know, and the whole story. And I accepted that hook, line, and sinker. And that's totally opposite of the way that I see Jesus coming, or the reason he came today. I believe he came more to set us free from religious indoctrination than to start another religion. And, you know, he came to tell us that we can be like he is, that basically, because Jesus was always saying, you know, I of myself can do nothing. You know, it's the Father in me doing the works, okay? Well, if Jesus of himself could do nothing, well, what the heck does that mean for us? You know, I mean, we're totally helpless. But he said that we could do the same things that he did and greater works than these. But I don't think we can do it if we're under the Christian doctrine, you know, this whole big, huge Bible that tells us we're born guilty and Jesus came only to die for our sins, and, you know, we're separate from God. You know, if you read just what Jesus said, God is not angry at us. You wouldn't even know that God is angry. You would think he was like the father in the parable of the prodigal son. You know, Jesus, you know, he told us that, you know, he doesn't judge us. I mean, that we can be like he is. And I just think that if people saw Jesus Christ as he is instead of as Christianity has presented him to us, and of course, like I think I touched on this in the last one, it really started in the 4th century with the Roman Emperor Constantine and the marriage of church state. And they said, okay, the Nicene Creed, which, you know, it's a creed that we believe, and what it is, we believe in the Trinity, and we believe that Jesus came and born of a virgin and died for our sins, and we believe in the Holy Catholic Apostolic Church. And that was the thing. And when later Martin Luther left the Catholic Church, he took basically the doctrines of the creed with him. And so all the Protestants believe the same thing. And so it's in everybody's mind that Jesus came only to die for our sins because, you know, we're so bad and we're worthless and, you know, we're worms. But Jesus came the opposite way to tell us that you can become like I am. In fact, you are like I am. You just forgot, and you can find the kingdom of heaven is within you. And, you know, he talked about the third eye. If your eye is single, your whole body shall be full of light, you know. So the Jesus that has been presented to us is so totally different than the Jesus as I see him. And if you just read the Gospels without interpreting them through the rest of the Bible, you know, you read Paul to think, okay, what did Jesus really mean? And we read Moses to think, okay, what's God really like? Well, he's this angry God that, boy, you better obey him. Or, you know, and that's the concept that is in everybody's mind, basically in Western civilization. So, you know, I'm just trying I started the YouTube channel just to try to get people to think about, hey, does that even really make sense? And maybe there's a different way. And, you know, this is what Jesus said, so why do we believe this? You know, and who is more authoritative in the Bible, either Jesus or Moses or Paul? Well, Paul is way more responsible for the doctrines of Christianity than Jesus is, because most of the doctrines of Christianity, Jesus never said a word about, like original sin, the Trinity, never mentioned it.
Shouldn't that be kind of alarming? That
it should be.
Like, because you just believe it hook, line, and sinker, and it's not just religion. Like humans, I've seen myself very capable of swallowing stuff that, because everyone around me believes it, well, they can't all be deceived. We can't all be wrong, right? And it wasn't until I used to believe that I live in Canada, the Canada Health Food Guide. The government puts out this health food guide that every decade contradicts itself because things that, doctors
Yeah.
used to advertise as smoking in the 60s, 70s was normal and good for you. They would have
Yeah.
doctors smoking. It's like, well,
Oh,
doctors
yeah.
can't be wrong. Yeah, food
Right.
health guides, governments can't be wrong. Vaccines can't be wrong.
Right.
Political parties can't be wrong, or else that means we're
Yeah.
all wrong.
Well, see, that's the thing. These are systems, like the governments, the religions. Basically, they're systems, and it's the systems that give us our perception of reality. So I was born in a little farming community in Kansas and grew up in the Baptist church. I mean, the only option I got was Jesus died for your sins, and if you believe that, you'll go to heaven. That was it. And, well-meaning adults in the community, that's what they believed, and that's what they taught me. And surely they wouldn't lie, and I didn't know any different. And, I went to a Bible college, and I hadn't read the Bible a lot, but of course I'd been to church and church summer camp and all this stuff. And so, I had bought it hook, line, and sinker. So I went in with okay, I'm going to study this, and this Bible is God's word, and, this is the way to heaven, and Jesus is the only way, and I'm going to prove it. And so, obviously I couldn't see any of the contradictions or any of the stuff that I obviously are so blatantly obvious to me today. But it's the system itself that, we're born into a system, and we, as kids, we don't know. Our parents believe it, and this is how life is. And so we accept the system, and we end up defending the system, and then we pass it on to our children and grandchildren until somebody finally sees that, wait a minute, questions, does this even make sense? And that's what, the group think, and, everybody, there's safety in numbers, and the group can't be wrong, and everybody else believes it. So, I'm going to huddle in here, and there's a fear of questioning. But, I think that's what now with so many, big name pastors that are falling and, things falling apart, it's forcing people to, to re-examine, and it's bringing up emotions in them that they've never really felt before. And, so I think it's very ripe for a spiritual awakening. And when I talk about Jesus, I'm talking about Jesus outside of the Christian religion and the Christian doctrines and stuff, because I personally see Jesus, the man, and Christian religion as two totally different things. And in fact, they're really polar opposites. I mean, if you really look at it, they really are. And
Mm.
but I think that the things that are happening, and the corruption in government and everything that's being exposed, because I grew up in the 1950s and 60s, and man, it was God and country, and the churches know, and boy, the government's they're for us, and the corporations are for us, and the news media, you can trust them. And it was like, God and country. And now then it's like, everything is being exposed. So that will open people up to a different way of looking at things. And I think a spiritual awakening, and I think it's, it's happening. And, people are, like you and me, it's like, we know inside and something, but we don't know what it is. So, but you just keep going along and keep surrendering to source, trying to live in the moment instead of, judging and everything. And yeah.
Where do you want to go? What do you want to discuss next then? Kind of just free flow this with you.
Well, I don't know. I want to get into that state of the free flow, like we said. And my main thing now is I would like to really get a discussion going, with Christians, and not to make them wrong, or me right, because believe me, I don't know all the answers at all. But I see some things that I think would help them. And I don't, here's the way I look at religion today. And I think both Judaism and Christianity used the exact same process to get the religion started and established. And if you look at Judaism, okay, it started with Moses when he led the children of Israel out of Egypt. So you got these people, this multitude that are slaves, have been slaves, that's all they've known for 400 years. And you got Moses, who grew up the son of the Pharaoh and was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. I mean, he could have become Pharaoh. He was that well trained, and so he has these slaves. So obviously he has such an advantage over them. And what he does, he hears from God, supposedly, and he gets the law of Moses on Mount Sinai. And then he sets up a system consisting of a priesthood and judges. And the law commanded every parent to teach their children the law. And anyone who disobeyed a priest or a judge, you could be stoned. And so, everything about that culture was about the law of Moses, from what you ate and how far you could walk on the Sabbath and how you trim your beard. Everything was told, this is what you do. And it's kind of what you would tell slaves. Okay, this is how you shave. This is how you eat. This is how you, because, slaves don't really know. That's all they had known. So this system, once it was set up and parents began teaching it to their children, and of course the priests were to be obeyed, they were the ones that we had to take sacrifices to, and they mediated between, for us to God. And so what happened, of course, the priesthood became very powerful and very wealthy. And I think Jesus came to totally set us free from that belief system. And people argue and say, oh no, Jesus, he spoke from the Old Testament. Yeah, he did, but he had to speak. That's the only language they knew. And he had to speak to them in the language they knew, which was the law of Moses. But he said, I didn't come to destroy the law, but I came to fulfill it. And you fulfill it by love. The way you fulfill it is, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. That was his whole message. That's in a nutshell. That's it. We do that. We don't need to do anything else. But he came and he stood against the priesthood. He called them every name in the book: blind guides, a den of thieves, hypocrites, snakes. You steal widows' houses. You're like dead, tombs. Everything. And he told the people, he said, beware of the leaven, which is the teaching of the Pharisees. He said, because if you get just a little bit of this in you about, fear of an angry God and we're unworthy, that's like yeast, and it will take over your whole mind, and you'll live in fear of an angry God and guilt and shame. And so Jesus came into this culture that was probably as indoctrinated religiously as any culture ever has been. And when he first met Peter, and the fish, the whole, when they caught all the fish, and Peter said to Jesus, he said, "Get away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man." Well, he had such a sin consciousness, and that's what the law gave us, was a sin consciousness. And Jesus came to say, no, you're children of God. And just by changing the name of God, he always referred to God as our Father in heaven. Nobody in the Old Testament would do that. When Jesus started calling God his Father, the Pharisees wanted to stone him for blasphemy, because, God is not your Father. But just when he started saying, no, God is your Father, our Father in heaven, my Father, your Father. Well, think of how that changes your mind, because you think, oh, you mean God loves me? And of course, Jesus said, Father, may they know that you love them just as you love me. And so he came to totally set us free from that sin consciousness and tell us that we can have the Christ consciousness, that the Christ can, awaken in us. But, then 400 years after Jesus, or, 300 years after Jesus, when Constantine came along, he used the exact same process to start Christianity. So here you have it wasn't a man, but it was a group of men that said, okay, this is who God is. This is what he demands. This is what you're to believe. And then they forced it on every person. And, in the Old Testament, you would get stoned to death if you disobey the priest. And then it became where if you don't believe, okay, now you will be burned at the stake. And so, once a belief system, regardless of what it is, once one generation believes it, okay, this is true. And, it's totally integrated into all the social life, the holidays that we celebrate, into the economic life. People make their livelihood from the religion. Well, it takes on a life of its own, and it's just a self-perpetuating system of belief. And the system goes on until we realize that, wait a minute, once we see the system, then it's like, the system loses its power over us. And so I'm trying to get people to think about, and the main thing that the system needs to exist is for us to believe the doctrines. Because that's the foundation of the Christian religion. I mean, you can't join the religion unless you accept the doctrines of the faith. That, Jesus died for me and I'm a sinner and I deserve hell, and, So, I don't know, that's something, because I think if people see Jesus as he is, it's like, whoa, he would be people wouldn't be hating him and have this crazy image of who he is.
It's hard because there's so much surrounding it. As you were talking, I was thinking about even the holidays, holy days. And I've looked into where Christmas came from, where Easter came from. You look into these and you find out really quickly online, it's like these were Roman pagan holidays that had nothing to do with Jesus being born or Jesus resurrecting. These were here long before Christ was even on the scene. And that the emperor amalgamated them into two because he had a growing religion and he had paganism. And he's like, well, I got to merge these. So I'm going to take these previously existing pagan sexual ritualistic holidays. And then let's just say that Christ was born here and Christ was on Easter, died and rose here. And then here we are hundreds of years later. And we're like, no one questions it because it's like, well, my mom and dad taught me. My dad was a pastor. He learned it in seminary. Surely the people in seminary have done their homework. And you find out a lot of people have not done homework. COVID just pointed this out to us. A lot of people did a lot of shit in the name of being safe in science. And then now it's all coming out. It's like no one checked anyone. All the money, follow the money. It's the same in religion. Yep. Follow the money. And it's like you start realizing this was a very dark agenda and people, we all could have stopped this. But it's like I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't making sense. The Bible is clearly not inerrant. Those holidays were nothing to do with Jesus. Like, what else am I believing? It's like the present was in the box, but the box has all this other stuff besides the gift, the birthday gift that I got. And it's all this other shit in the box. And I thought all of this, and this one little thing is maybe Jesus. Then there's all this shit that someone else threw in the wrapping paper. And then it's like, I just assumed the whole present's for me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jesus comes with so much shit piled on him, doctrines and beliefs and rituals and traditions, and you can't even see Jesus. And what I try to tell people, or what I'm trying to figure out how to articulate, when I talk to Christians is, you have Jesus, and if we would have followed him around, we would have just heard him speak things. Basically, kind of in a nutshell, love one another. That's it. Don't judge, don't condemn, don't, commit adultery, don't do all this stuff. Those are just how to live principles, and there's nothing religious about them because any atheist can do them or anybody can do them. So it's not, Christianity does not own any of those how to live sayings that Jesus taught with his own mouth any more than they bingo or potluck dinners or anything. But what happens is, you have to believe the doctrines. And the doctrines are mostly things that Jesus never said. So, why do we need to believe doctrines? Like, for example, to be a Christian in, a Catholic or most Protestants, you have to believe in some variation of original sin. We were born guilty because of Adam and Eve. You have to believe in the Trinity. You have to believe in the virgin birth. You have to believe in the blood atonement, the sacrifice for Jesus, sin. And none of these can be proven. And Jesus never said a word about most of them. And so if you just, question, does it make sense that because of Adam and Eve and they were deceived by a talking snake that I was born guilty and deserving hell? And how can I prove that, and does it really matter that we believe these things? And what is the reason that we have to believe them? And the church tells us, well, you got to believe them to go to hell, or to go to heaven. But, you really don't, I don't think, because, none of them can be proven. Jesus never said a word about most of them. And, it's just
Well, most believers are not reading the Bible, number one.
true.
And
True.
it was a long time when I wasn't, and I started reading it and going, okay, what's actually being said, re- re- recorded, or apparently said that Jesus said. And then you start reading what it says Jesus said, and let's say it's true. And then you compare that to the rest of it, like from the massacres to the chauvinism, and you're like, hang on, this fucking thing doesn't make sense. Like, how long are we going to hang on to something that's clearly not working? And my big hang up was, well, there's no power in it. Like Christ said, these signs, if that's true, these signs will accompany those that believe. Speak in new tongues, raise the dead, drive out demons, heal the sick. And I'm like, well, how can I be saved? How can I be saved if I cannot demonstrate? Forget about everybody else. If I can't demonstrate it, how do I know Christ? And I was like, well, I guess I don't know Christ. Like Jesus said, these signs will accompany those that believe. And if it's true, that's what was said. Well, I don't pass that litmus test. I had one miraculous healing happen once that I knew of, and I tried a number of times, and I was like, I can't replicate this. So is the system broken or am I broken? And I don't mean like, am I a piece of garbage, but is something in me off? And I had to reconcile and go, okay, well, I love what Jesus says. I I want to believe. I got baptized 3 times to make it work. I still couldn't. Okay, I still couldn't, and I'm like, I really want to believe that what he spoke about is attainable outside of religion, because something in my heart wants to believe that. And I want to know that risen power. Selfishly, I want to be resurrected in this better form that I am. Like, I don't mean then, I mean right now. Like, I want to ascend. I want to become my version of, he said, the second Adam. If Jesus was the second Adam, well, that means he restored us back to the original state of humans, whatever form that, if that story is correct. It's like, well, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to be one with God? What does it mean to be filled with the holiness, the presence of source, of power? Like, what does that mean to walk in absolute divine love? I want that.
Oh, I do too. And I try to tell people, okay, that you have the doctrines of Christianity, most of them which Jesus never spoke of, and then you have the things that Jesus did say, love one another, treat others as you want to be treated. And I said, you don't have to leave Jesus when you leave Christianity, because a lot of people right now are struggling. They're, leaving Christianity, they're deconstructing, and man, that's a tough thing to do. Because you're losing your identity, you're losing your social network of friends, you're losing your belief system. But I tell them, I said, hey, you don't have to leave Jesus. You can have Jesus without Christianity. Christianity basically is the doctrines. It's a system that's built on doctrines. And everything about the religion, from the creeds and rituals and traditions and holy days and sacraments, is all to deepen our belief. And we're all taking the communion together, So yeah, we all believe it, and but I say, just I don't think Jesus is gonna send you to hell because you don't believe in the story of Adam and Eve and the garden, taken literally, or even, like I personally believe, I totally believe Jesus was crucified. I personally believe he was raised. He raised himself from the dead because I think he had that power. He said he did. But I don't think it matters whether I believe that or not because there's no way to prove it. And, you know, I don't need to believe it to be a disciple of Jesus. To be a disciple of Jesus, I have to take up my cross, which is crucifying my ego, you know, and not believing or reciting creeds or, believing, oh, now I'm in with Jesus because I go to church and I do all the sacraments and I've conformed to the group think and do all the right things. So, I tell people, you don't have to leave Jesus when you leave Christianity. And that makes it easier for people that are leaving, because you're saying, oh, wait a minute. You mean I don't have to leave Jesus? In fact, you find Jesus because when you take away all the doctrines from him, it's like, well, you see him as he is. And then you see that he says that we can be like he is and that Christ consciousness that was in him, that allowed him to do those works, is in us also. And we can do the same works and we can, love and we can find bliss, the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And I believe that's why he came to tell us that, hey, the kingdom of heaven, we're supposed to bring it here to earth. And I mean, just, if 1/3 of the world is supposedly, followers of Jesus, some flavor of Christianity. I mean, if 1/3 of the world really was like Jesus, had the Christ in him, not doctrines and rituals and traditions and all that stuff, but, had Christ awakening in them, man, I think the world would change in a hurry. We wouldn't have the wars and homelessness, and we could make the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And I think that's what's happening now is, people are awakening to these systems and how they control our perception of reality, and we just believe it without ever, really examining it. But, start to examine it, and, there starts to be cracks in the systems, and they start to come down. But that allows us to see Christ, and to become Christ-like. And, I think that's like your vision and my vision is seeing the world, where we're not divided and polarized by, all the different things that divide us, primarily religion and nationality and ethnicity and those things. But we realize, like all the masters have said, that, we are truly one, and one with God, one with the divine. And, if we have that concept about ourselves, it changes us instead of having the concept of, oh, I'm a sinner, I'm saved by grace, I don't deserve anything, the way Christianity, but that allows Christianity to exist and thrive because then we need them. Tell me what to do, Father. Please forgive my sins.
It's a parasitic system, as pretty much all
Yes.
human systems are. They're parasitic. They like impose a hierarchy, and then this is where you fit, this is who's above you, this is who's below you, and maybe you can move up in it. So it gives you hope, and you get to load over your serf because they're beneath you. Your kids are beneath you, maybe people younger, but then there's your boss, so there's a doctor, so there's your priests or whatever. And I just think every system number one mandate is to, at all costs, ensure the system continues.
Yes.
So that's why I don't trust systems, because it's made by humans, typically partially full of ego, maybe partially trying to make the world a better place, but it's a system, which means it's an entity. It has its own almost emotions or spirit, and it's alive, and it's like it doesn't want to die. And then
got a survival instinct.
Yeah. And then we sacrifice each other. We sacrifice the parts of ourselves like worship services, voting for, oh, I'm liberal, oh, I'm conservative. You're bowing down at a fucking altar and you're exalting a demon.
Really?
That's what it is. Worship
Yeah.
services is the same thing. Sporting games is, I see it the same thing. When people sell their souls out to go and worship their team, it's
Huh.
like you're bowing down to spirits. Are you sure these are the spirits that you want to enslave yourself to? Well, I vote Republican, I vote liberal, I vote Democratic. It's like,
Right.
really? You want to bow your knee to a spirit? Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, I trust doctors. Are you sure about that? Who are they trusting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, it's the systems themselves that I think once people begin to see, once they see the system, then the systems, they lose their power over you. I mean, we all are sovereign. We all, I believe, are divine children of God. But the Christian system, well, all religious systems can't exist if we ever understand that. And I think that's what people are waking up to today. And I think that's why all the systems are being exposed as corrupt. And, more and more people are every day just kind of waking up. And I think it's going to continue. And I think we'll get to a point where there's that critical mass. And then instead of being just a few, I like the analogy of popcorn. You put popcorn on the stove and you turn it on the fire. And sit there, nothing happens for a while, and then finally, boop, there's one that pops, maybe a Buddha, and boop, there's one that pops, there's Jesus, and pop, 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 and pretty soon it's just like, and, and I kind of see that way. That's how I envision awakening will be. And right now, I mean, boop, pop, pop, it's starting to pop a little bit, but I think it's going to really increase. And I think people, my vision really with, starting my channel and everything, it's not because the people in the system are just, they're products of the system. And all through history, I mean, the people that were being burned at the stake and the people that were burning the people at the stake are both just, they're products of the system. And they're just doing what the system, basically the system, we bow down to the system, and we got to protect the system. We got to defend the system and, keep it going and all. And, the system is killing us. And it's, the reason we fight wars and the reason we're divided. And, that's why Jesus, whenever he was talking to his disciples and he washed their feet, and, he taught them, he said, in this age, the rulers, they lord it over their subjects. But he said in the coming kingdom, which I think we're transitioning into now, he said it's going to be different because the greatest is going to serve the weakest. And when he washed his disciples' feet, he said, do you understand? This is what I did to you. You call me Lord and Master, and that's true because I am. But if I washed your feet, I'm giving you an example that you are to wash your disciples' feet, and or wash each other's feet and wash those that you serve, because that's what we got to get to, and that's again that's an awakening that can only happen within, where instead of getting our self-worth and that feeling inside of us by being powerful over another person, we just have the Christ consciousness in us that is just love, and we serve others because of love. And it doesn't matter whether you're the president or a street sweeper or whatever, there's no greater than or lesser than. It's just we're all in this life and we're all experiencing life, and really the beauty of this world, and we could make it into the most beautiful, kingdom of heaven here to earth if we just would, but the systems really are, we got to defend the systems.
Danny, I got to bounce. This has been a great conversation. Loved having this with you. Part two, or just a separate conversation, but I love chatting with you. I love that you're a part of this. Whatever this is, the Christ Quest, the conversations, I hope to see all this stuff manifest some point in the next few years on Earth, because it'd be great to see the tides really start moving that way.
Yeah, I think we are. I'm optimistic, and let's just keep doing what we can do and shining our light. And I love what you're doing, and thanks for having me on. And love chatting with you, Amos.
It's a pleasure, Danny. All right, if you're watching the Christ Quest, connect with Danny Zeigler. He'd love to connect with you as well. Thanks, Danny, for being on, and I look forward to interviewing, having conversations, and seeing where this goes as a collective. All right, Danny, I'll end it here.
All right, thanks, Amos.